Hey, what are those brown spots on my Ixoras?
Welcome to the DIY Pest Control Podcast, where you get the best info for those who want to perform their own pest control. The DIY Pest Control Podcast is brought to you by Nature Pest. Nature Pest has been providing the finest in commercial and residential integrated pest management for structural, lawns, trees, shrubs, and mosquitoes with better control and less contamination at an affordable price. For more info, visit us at naturepest.com.
Hey, welcome back to another edition of the DIY Pest Control Podcast. I am your host, Frank Hernandez, Certified Pest Control Operator and Certified Horticultural Specialist here at Nature Pest. It is my pleasure to do this podcast for you today. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're enjoying your landscape. I hope you're enjoying doing that gardening, but occasionally you're going to have a problem with scale, with insects, with diseases, and with micronutrient and nutrient deficiencies. And I hope this podcast is going to help you be able to take care of your plants and keep your landscape beautiful. But why are your Ixoras having these brown spots? Well, the question you have to identify in this case is it an insect that's causing it? Is it a disease? Or is it a deficiency issue, a nutrient deficiency issue? And let me explain what happens. In South Florida, we have a problem with our soil. Our soil is what is known as a calcareous soil. It is highly alkaline. And if you're, depending on what part of the world you're in, you have to know what soil you're planting into. Is your soil alkaline or is it acidic? And the problem is it's very difficult to fix or correct these problems. I think it's much easier to correct an acid soil and make it a little bit more alkaline than it is to take an alkaline soil and make it acidic. Very, very hard, because what happens is there's a large amount of calcium carbonate in the soil that binds everything to the soil. You can't get rid of it. So an alkaline soil, if you remember basic chemistry, you'll remember that, acid is a neutral soil, or neutral is going to be at 7. Anything above 7 is alkaline. Anything below 7 is going to be acidic. In our case, our soil in some places 8.59 alkaline, which is very, very, very alkaline. And what happens with alkaline soils is that most of the nutrients become bound to the soil, and it doesn't become accessible to the plant. Even if you put a fertilizer, a lot of the fertilizers become neutralized by the amount of alkalinity in the soil, so the tree can't take it up. And you end up with a lot of problems like necrosis and chlorosis on plants. Chlorosis is just the inability of that plant to produce chlorophyll. And so there gets that yellowish, color to the leaf when it should be green. In the case of necrosis, you get these spots or stains on the leaf, and the leaf becomes what is known as necrotic. And the question is it caused by an insect that you have it? Is it caused by a nutrition or a disease? And the way to help you identify if it's just pale yellow and you can't find an insect, you can't look at it just pale yellow leaf. You're looking in the back. You're looking under a microscope for mites. You're taking that leaf out, putting it on a blank piece of paper, and you're able to not find any mites. Then chances are it's a deficiency issue. And that's why you have that pale color. If you're finding black mold on your plants, well, that's not a fungus. That is caused by insects, mainly scale aphids, mealybugs, and thrips. The reasoning you get that black sooty mold on your plant is because the excrement from that insect is sugar, and a fungal bacteria found its way onto that sugar. Now it has plenty of food to grow, and it can multiply. Well, if you take care of the insect problem, that fungus goes away. A lot of times people will start treating it with fungicides, with copper, and trying to control that fungus, and they don't get control of it because it still keeps insect is growing. You're not controlling the insect. So the idea there is you got to control the insect and finding it and then treating it with a product that's going to control that insect, whether it's natural, whether it's synthetic. The idea is that you have to know the life cycle of that pest. And I always say this, most people will make one application and then, walk away and say, well, the product didn't work. It's not that the product didn't work, it's that you didn't break the life cycle. You never got control. And chemical application does not equal control. You have a company that's doing a quarterly service and you're still getting the black sooty mold and they're not controlling. The reasoning is, well, every 3 months you're not going to get control. So you need to be able to make frequent applications on a lot of these insects in order to break the life cycle, keeping them from molting, keeping them from being able to generate into an adult. And they're most vulnerable when they're in that molt process, when they can't produce an exoskeleton. And that is when you can kill them. If you try to kill most of these insects on contact, they have waxy scale or waxy covering that the pesticide does not penetrate. And then you don't have a lot of residuals on these pesticides because they will photodegrade. The sun will break them down on the leaf, and therefore you don't get probably maybe 7 to 10 days of control. Well, after that, you still have that molting going on, and that's why most people are not getting control. And then you get to funguses. Well, what if it is a fungus? Then you should be able to see lesions. And in the picture I have in this, you see the brown spots, but you right in the middle of the leaf, you see this like lesion, like turn white. Well, that's a sign that there's a fungus there growing, and that whiting of the leaf, like it's eating through the leaf, it's just there, then that could be a sign that you have a fungus. But if you're seeing those brown big spots, that is usually a micronutrient deficiency. It's missing either iron or manganese. So how do you correct it? Well, what you have to do is you have to do a ground fertilization with a product that has your NPK, your nitrogen, your phosphorus, and your potassium, which it needs, but it also needs to have micronutrients in it. And if it doesn't have the right of micronutrients and the product is not available, then it can't take it up. Then the second thing you will have to do to get that problem fixed is maybe do a micronutrient spray with a chelated micronutrient product. One of the products that we recommend is the Palm 12412, which is loaded with amino acids and sugars and complex carbohydrates, and also has micronutrients, and it also has the NPK. So it's a great product. It does come in a 2.5 gallon. It doesn't come smaller. The company is working on building a product line for residential users and small applicators. But you can find in your local hardware store or home improvement store a micronutrient or chelated mix. Or if not, you can just order one online and make a foliar application maybe once a month until you correct the problem, and then doing it on a bi-monthly basis with those micronutrients until that problem is corrected. It might take months. It might take up to a year to correct that problem. So you do have to work at it. One of the things that you have to really, really get right is making sure that plant is in the right place. So in the right soil, the right amount of water, the right amount of sunlight. If you can't correct with chemical something that was done wrong at the inception of putting that plant in the wrong place where it's not going to thrive. So that's the biggest thing, is making sure the irrigation is right, reducing overhead irrigation, irrigating the soil, making sure that it's getting in the right sunlight, because a lot of issues are caused by sunlight causing deficiency issues that look the same, but they can't be corrected by a chemical. So that's one of the things that you have to keep an eye on. So that's, what we're looking at with Ixora. Those are the major problems. And those brown spots are really a micronutrient deficiency problem. I hope this podcast is helping you get a nice, beautiful garden, helping you with your pest problems, helping you do your own. Just remember, guys, always read the label. Follow label directions. Do not apply more than is allowed on the label. Use the appropriate protection. Use gloves. Use what's recommended on that label to keep yourself safe and to keep other people safe, including your children and pets and wildlife. So we want to protect everyone in the world, but the only way we can do it is through sound cultural practice, to sound practices when managing pesticides. I hope you're doing well and that you prosper in your landscape. I'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the DIY Pest Control Podcast. Please remember that although Franklin Hernandez is a certified and licensed pest control operator in the state of Florida, the content of this podcast is for informational purposes only. You should consult your local and state government or cooperative extension service before performing any pest control service. Remember to always read and follow label directions because the label is the law.